and welcome to Two Tired Teachers.
Today we want to talk to you about lodging in and around Yosemite National Park.
We're going to start with the upper echelon and then end with where we stayed. So
the Awahnee is a lovely historic building. It's an older hotel, but they've spared no expense. I don't know how much rooms are. We were there at a mealtime and looked at buffet prices. Breakfast was $34.99.
And by the way, this is just kind of that 2,000-foot view of if you are just now considering Yosemite as a destination and are curious, what are my options going to be? That's this video.
Yes.
This is not in depth about any of them. But as we were looking in the area, that was one of those things is what is the Awahnee and what is a lodge?
And our cousin told us, go to the Awahnee, just follow the red carpet, and there is a red carpet, or there was in 2022. Follow it in, make yourselves at home.
And we're glad we did. It is a gorgeous historic building, the first built, I think, in the valley.
Yes.
Or at least the oldest one we saw in the valley. And then the lodge is going to be next on that list.
And the lodge, the looks, I don't know how it's fixed up inside, but it looks sort of like an old Days Inn or Motel 6 with the outdoor access to the second story, and
that's the only thing it has in common with Days Inn or Motel 6, but that's the layout. It's like the old motels where you have the doors open to an outside railing, and you have parking there, and that's kind of a premium with these. And we also want to mention in 2022 the ranger told us, I believe it was May 20th, you're going to need a reservation to be in the park.
Yes.
But if you have a reservation for anywhere that you're staying inside the park, that is your entrance into the park.
And I wanted to mention, if you have mobility issues or if you have a handicap sticker, be sure to mention that when you get a room at the lodge, because I don't think there's access to the second floor.
No, I don't believe there are any elevators that go to the second floor. Not positive about that, but I do not believe so. But one of the things I liked about it was the names of the different buildings, and there are a lot of different buildings.
I love that.
Are types of trees, and so that was kind of cool.
Juniper and cedar and
fern,
oak,
etc.
Yeah.
So, that's the lodge, and then you have kind of a step down, and it is
it's Housekeeping Campground. It's a very cool thing, I think.
In Texas, I think they're called yurts that are more comparable to these, but we weren't sure what they were. We just were riding our bikes around and rode through one of these campgrounds and asked some people. Marlena saw some people packing up, and she said, "Do you mind if we look inside?" And then, which one were you in? Because they're really two. There's one on each side, and they told us which one.
And they are open air. I mean, there's no door you're going to lock or anything like that.
They're canvas tents.
Yeah. And you go inside, and
the one we looked at had a double bed and then bunk beds. And
there's a table just inside the open area.
Right. So there's like an entrance that's covered where you can have your table there. I think the table's kind of movable.
Yeah.
But then you can go in where you can actually lower the flaps and
yes.
There is electricity there.
Yes, and I think there were not a dresser, but some shelves and maybe a mirror.
But you're going to be bringing your own bedding.
Yes.
You're going to be bringing everything you need.
Yes.
And you're going to be taking a walk to the bathroom.
Yes.
There is a laundromat, though, in that area.
Yes.
The only one in Yosemite. But that is in the valley. All of these are in the valley that we're talking about right now.
And if you wanted to prepare meals. You'll be cooking outside.
Yes, you could bring a camp stove if you're staying in one of the housekeeping, but you would need to bring some way to prepare that food and to store that food.
Yes,
they're bear
boxes.
lockers, but if you're going to have something where you need a ice chest or something, you'd need to bring that.
Yes.
And then the next would be the campgrounds. And when it said Upper Pines and North Pines and Lower Pines, I was thinking elevation.
Yes.
It's not. It's the distance in the valley. It's just how they're laid out.
They're all right together.
And folks, I love our national parks. There's no question about that. I absolutely love our national parks. And you're going to hear, we stayed in a campground in the national park, but their goal is to get as many campers inside a small area as they can because people want access to this area.
And remember,
But
this is a Grand Canyon shirt I have on. It was established in 1919. You didn't have 35 feet RVs.
I think this was 1890. I'm not
yes,
positive.
it's older than
Yosemite.
It's older than Grand Canyon.
But if you're going to be towing anything to these campgrounds,
you need to check
the length. Now the
height.
The campgrounds in the valley are all relatively flat. We cannot promise you're going to be level, but compared to some of the others, they seem to be really flat. But we saw some motorhomes.
Yes.
But we also saw some, if it says tent only, don't try and get any size of a...
They mean
tent only. There's not overflow parking for these campgrounds at all. And the ones that we saw in the valley, I think every one of them had backstops lining the parking area.
Yes.
So... And some of them, I always think, well, we've got at least 5 feet behind our wheels. We can back the wheels up that extra 5 feet. You cannot always, if there's a tree or a rock, a large rock, you can't. And so be very careful when you're making your reservations that you know what the dimension is, and you're going to have to be able to park everything you have in your parking spot. And there are no services, no water, electric, or sewer at campsites. There is a dump station with potable water
not too far away.
There in I think it's Upper Pines, but it serves all of them, I believe.
Yes. Okay, another thing I wanted to mention about being in a campground, I cannot remember the other thing I wanted to mention.
That happens when you get to her age. Then, moving out from there in the valley, there's what's called Camp 4. That is for tent camping only. And they have rules posted that are very specific. That parking lot, you must have a Camp 4 parking lot sticker to park there because parking in the valley is a premium. And you may not sleep in your car, but you're parking in this parking lot and carrying your stuff to your little designated campsite, and you're setting up a tent. That's what they allow in Camp 4. And we did see, even May 1st or 2nd, we saw tow trucks towing cars out. And so you want to be very careful because it makes it fair for everybody.
Yes.
Moving out from there, there is, to the south, there is Wawona, I believe is the way it's pronounced, campground. We drove past it a number of times, but it was not open until the last time we were coming through when we were towing. And
maybe May 1st.
We didn't want to get off, but it looked very flat.
Yes.
There is a dump station. It's actually across the street on Forest. We used it on Forest Drive. And you just keep going back, and they have potable water there as well. That potable water was not turned on until the campground opened. We weren't sure we were going to get potable water there, but we did. But you're towing through tunnels. If you're coming from the south, there is a fairly long tunnel. The outside
The curb.
the height at the
Side.
curb is 10 feet 2 inches. Now, I'd watched videos and someone was very concerned about these tunnels. Well, our RV at the air conditioner is 9 feet 5 inches, I think. So I knew we had no trouble. We saw tour buses coming through, but you need to make sure about yours. And then going to we stayed at the Hardin Meadow.
The
Hogden Meadow campground.
And there were 3 tunnels.
To the north, yeah. And there were 3 tunnels. They were all shorter. And I think the lowest height was 10 feet 3 inches at the curb. Something like that. But what we found out when we left was coming in that we came north on 41 and we left on 120. Well, there was no big deal going to the campground, but towing out, you reach a certain point and you are on steep grades and switchback roads, and we did talk to a man who claimed he had blown a brake on that. So be careful. He was towing a 45-foot fifth wheel, he said. So we're not saying do or don't, but about this Hogden Meadow campground, we were very, very, very fortunate in that we were able to get perfectly level.
Be careful when you're pulling in. They're not clearly marked which campsite goes with which post.
Just take your time and kind of scope it out and make sure that you get, we did get in the right spot. But we looked at the campground map and thought, oh great, there's a parking area right next to our campsite.
So if we can't fit,
we can just park in that parking lot. That map shows parking lots, and what it is, you'll notice there are signs throughout the campground saying, this parking for sites like 31 through 42, park here. Those are for sites where people are carrying their tents and all of their stuff into a campsite. If it says tent only, you've only got that little place to park a car. You cannot park an RV there. And those parking sites are not necessarily going to be level. And we saw some people in RVs that couldn't get level. No. I mean, they're just not designed.
Well, and they may not have had levelers. We don't know.
But that campground, even though it says it's a meadow,
it's not.
It was not. It was the most unlevel of the campgrounds that we saw.
And the elevation was higher.
Yes, I don't remember exactly how high it was, but it's a national park campground. And we did have reservation there for 2 nights because we weren't positive where we would be able to find dispersed camping.
Yes.
And so...
And we're very glad.
Yes, we were glad we were there. And we'll tell you, it's a little bit shorter drive from the Hogden Meadow campground to the valley, I believe, than it would be from the Wawona.
Yes.
It's not a huge difference. I think the drive from the south to the north is a prettier drive, but it's just different.
Yeah.
I'm glad we drove all the way through. That was a wonderful thing.
Although there are some spectacular waterfalls going
north.
Yes.
Yeah. But the tunnel view is from the south. So it just depends. And then dispersed camping. We're going to give you the shorter version, and that is we found Mount Raymond Road, and it's called Goat Meadow,
I guess.
Snow play area.
Yes.
And as you come in from the south on 41, you actually pass a little sign that says Yosemite Park.
Yes.
And then you turn right immediately, and it actually takes you up on a paved road, and it takes you out of the park into the national forest.
Now, the first time we were there...
And then you go to the very end and turn left. I want to go in and say that because there is a place where there's a road closed. That's a dirt road that you're assuming is going to be national forest. No. You turn into a big parking lot.
Yes. When we went there to scope it out before we moved the trailer, there was snow the end of April all over this little meadow at the side.
There was a lot of snow.
By
But
the time we got there to camp, there was an east.
okay, and about this place, one thing we want to say, at the end of April, and I believe it was May 1st or 2nd when we left there, if you got there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you may be alone.
Sure.
But every night,
Yes.
even that early, there were at least a dozen people that were camping there. The rangers were actually sending people to, we talked to some people who had rented an RV. They were from
Yes.
Holland, some from Germany. But this is kind of the overflow parking. So, and yes, we left our trailer there. We unhitched. We had it locked as best we
Yes.
could. And went and explored the valley. We left it there. We actually stayed there, I think, 5 nights.
Yes.
It was
was
glorious.
great.
It was a really nice place. And like I said, you're on a paved
Yes.
parking lot. Now, I will say at this place, when you get to the very end where you see the sign for the Goat Meadow or whatever it is on your left, there is a dirt road to your right. And if you want to park in the paved parking lot and go scope it out, there are a number of places where you can have a little bit more privacy back in the woods. But that's going to depend on a lot of things. But at the time we were there, there were several people that went back up, and you're not going to go far.
No.
But that would accommodate several other people. There was to the north, I had done some research, and where I thought we were going to be doing dispersed camping, Hogden Road?
It was
Hardin Road.
Hardin Road or Harkin or
Hardin Ridge Road. Anyway,
Hardin Flat.
Hardin Flat. Yeah, and I'd seen some videos and people talking about this. There's more than one Hardin Flat Road.
There were about 3.
And while we were unhitched, we actually started down several of them, and none of them looked like the video that I'd seen. So that's just kind of a heads up. If you're towing something and you're not familiar with exactly where that is, we're just telling you our experience. But we had an awesome time. 5 nights dispersed and then 2 nights at the campground. And wow, it was awesome.
We could have stayed at Yosemite longer. We loved it.
It's one of those places, yeah, we still left wanting more.
Yes.
But those are the camping options that we saw, or the lodging options that we saw. And if you've stayed in any of the others, please leave comments and let us know how those worked out for you. Thanks for watching Two Tired Teachers.